Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 5th of May. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, then on screen share the event chart right at the start of the week, always influential and provides a backdrop for the whole 7 days. As influences feed in, I go through them frame by frame to give you a really clear picture of what we can all collectively expect. Please stay with me. I'll then go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Just briefly, please check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's stunning. See the link below. Sign up for your free daily written horoscope or your 3 daily moon horoscope based on your personal birth data. So that's a natal feature. Or check out my 3-card tarot. It's absolutely stunning. And also, if you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please see my testimonials below. This week begins with a glorious link between Mercury and Jupiter. Now, Mercury is the ruler of where Jupiter is located in Gemini, so we have some mutual receptivity. Now, it's a bank holiday in the UK, but if you are involved in a discussion around a contract, that can be very constructive. But it's not limited just to Monday. That aspect goes on all week within 3 degrees. Another interesting feature of this week is the fact that although Pluto has now gone retrograde, it does forge a very enabling link to Venus right through the spine of the week, and that peaks on Tuesday. I'll tell you more about that. And also the 2 rulers of Aquarius, Saturn traditional and Uranus progressive, they're actually in a very constructive alliance too. Now, of course, Mercury has been going through a retrograde, just like Venus, and that's why with them both gathered in the sign of Pisces, which is a watery influence, of course, but because the restrictive Saturn's been there and we've had the complexities of the North Node and also the eclipses in recent months, it hasn't been a case of full steam ahead. So by Saturday, Mercury returns to the sign of Taurus, and I feel that we can make sense of something that may have stumbled or stalled or been very frustrated. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart. As ever, I always like to point out the position of the luminaries. And this week, they start in a very constructive way because the moon is in its home sign of Cancer, the sun is in the sign of Taurus. But the alliance they're forging, a sextile, very enabling because Earth, where the sun is, carries water, the riverbed. So that conducts that energy in an excellent way. But of course we have had that very heavy and rather tense standoff between Mars and Pluto, and it's still ongoing and in a broader sense still just reaching towards the sun, although it is diminishing in terms of that fixed, potentially inflexible energy. But we still could be encountering someone this week who has a might is right attitude. In a more constructive way, as I mentioned before, Uranus and Saturn, the 2 co-rulers of Aquarius, are very well aligned. And you can see that Saturn is also pretty close to the North Node. Now that can be a little bit challenging. We could say that we need to share our emotions in a very thoughtful way with that combinations, but I feel that it does really say that if there has been something that has been blocked, as I mentioned, trying to find a different way of looking at it. Saturn's very much about structures, Uranus very much about innovation. If we can look at it in a fresh way, we may tease some value out of something. But as I also mentioned, with Mercury returning to Taurus as the week draws to a close, I feel that the strands that are meant to be, that we've really put the effort in, we may have had to adapt and in some ways flex in our approach, but we can start to see the benefits come through. And in some ways that may also see some more hopeful possibilities around money. But I do say may, because at the very start of next week we are going to see a full moon. And that full moon in Scorpio is still going to see Mars in Leo very broadly in touch with the opposition between the moon in Scorpio and the sun in Taurus. So as we get to the end of this week, although Mercury in Taurus can help us to think and to calculate our finances or think about our values, there is still that building intensity coming as the full moon is about to reach its peak right at the start of the following week. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. So Aries, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast does give you an opportunity to discuss something at the start of this week in a way which has a real, almost fated dimension. Venus is back in your sign, it's very close to Neptune. That combination can be wonderful for any kind of creative or artistic output that you're involved in. Where it can be a little more challenging is it can be a bit hazy. For example, there could be someone that we're absolutely fascinated by, but ultimately, because Neptune can be somewhat distorting, perhaps they're not going to be quite who we would like them to be. But what's going to help at the very start of this week is that Pluto, the planet of transformation, but also it's a very perceptive influence and teases beneath the surface. That's forging an excellent link to both the position of Neptune and of Venus, one that reaches a peak on Tuesday. So if you wanted to get in touch with someone that you felt there was that chemistry with, it doesn't have to be in a romantic context. It could be around a job, maybe a friend or someone that you've met socially that you're just drawn towards. There could be something very, very positive and, as I mentioned, fated around that alliance. But with Mercury, the planet of communication, coming to the end of its journey in your sign, but forging an excellent link to the lucky Jupiter exactly on Monday, whether you're talking about or thinking about something that perhaps is to do with enterprise, or maybe it is just to do with some kind of social meetup, there is the potential for a real slice of fortune. So that's really encouraging. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, Saturn in your 12th house for you personally the last couple of years has not necessarily been very easy, but it is forging a very constructive link to Uranus. So in your case, I feel that a talent or an experience or some knowledge that you've gained in the past can come back to you this week, but you may have to deploy it or approach it in a fresh way. So for example, around an employment situation, it may not be a like-for-like role that you're drawn towards, but if you can just see what you've gained, the knowledge you've garnered over those years, that can, if you're open to doing things in a fresh way, that could be very exciting for you if you can embrace the sometimes unpredictable energies of Uranus. So your finances probably have been a bit up and down pretty well since March 2019, but it also has perhaps helped you to understand what your true values are and what you won't do as much as what you will do. So Uranus has served a purpose. I also mentioned in the introduction about your ruler Mars. Now Mars is going to be coming into a broad right angle with the Sun as this week draws to a close and feed into the narrative of the full moon, which occurs next Monday. So obviously I'll tell you more about that then. But essentially, if you are trying to balance the books, I think Mars in your 5th house could make you much more spontaneous and even impulsive, particularly by the end of this week as Mercury returns to Taurus. So if you are deciding to splash out on something, you just need to absolutely check exactly whether it is something you truly need or can bear the cost of. But more on that full moon next week for you. Have a great week, Aries, and please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Taurus, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with the sun in your sign, forging an excellent alliance with the moon in Cancer. If you do need to discuss something, the chances are you can use just the right set of words to express yourself. It's interesting at the start of this week too, because Uranus, which has proved somewhat challenging over the last few years, pushing you in some ways to release yourself from something that may have been safe but perhaps became too predictable, that's actually forging a very strong link to the planet of stability. And there may be someone showing up in your world at the moment who is different to you, but actually you're learning that there's an authenticity about this person. In fact, this could be someone who has quite a spiritual dimension too, somewhat of a healer. There may be someone that you're following, someone you find rather inspirational. But if there is a romantic equation in your situation at the moment, and you're not quite sure how it's going to go, I think the fact that Neptune and Venus are closely aligned, Venus your ruler, at the start of this week, certainly encouraging you to listen to your sixth sense, because sometimes it's when we go against our gut feeling that things can go awry. And in fact, Pluto, the planet of transformation, but also deeper truths, is forging a very strong link with Venus on Tuesday. So if you did need to decipher the way forwards, particularly around a professional relationship, perhaps you're having some confidential discussions, and at this stage you may not feel that you're able to perhaps tell other people about that. Perhaps you're just mulling something over. Perhaps you work in an environment where you're not completely sure of what to do. But you know, with Jupiter, the planet of fortune, in an excellent link at the very start of this week with Mercury in your 12th house, those conversations that may for now need to be somewhat confidential could actually come into their own as this week develops. And the reason for that is that Mercury returns to your sign, because Mercury's been going through a long retrograde journey. Obviously, initially it was in Aries, but then it inversed back into the part of your chart that's to do with your future plans, but also your network. If there has been, as you see it, some disloyalty, or someone's not been completely transparent about how they feel, and that's really been quite hard to get through in recent weeks. And generally, I feel that April was quite a tough month for many of us, especially as your ruler Venus was accompanied like a strict parent through the whole month by the rather cool energies of Saturn. I feel that you're really going to see your spirits pick up as Mercury comes back into your sign by Saturday. Now, there is going to be a full moon, obviously, on the start of next week, on the 12th, and it is going to be in your opposite sign of Scorpio. So we just need to be mindful of the energy of Mars this week, because Mars is broadly square the Sun in your sign. That could bring out in you the rather more direct and blunt side of your nature. You're usually someone who's pretty steady about life. But if there is somebody, and it may be someone close to you, or it could be around a property matter. So for example, if you're dealing with an agent on a rental, or perhaps on a purchase, and that person is proving frustrating, or you're waiting for a contractor to finish something in your home, that frustration can be quite palpable. But by the end of this week, although Mercury does return to your sign, which brings you into the moment, can embolden you in terms of if there has, well, as you see it, been some perhaps disappointments, maybe a separation for some people, maybe some downright dishonesty that you've encountered. I feel that you're going to move into the moment, but I feel that what Mars is going to do with that full moon is make you very single-minded about what you need to achieve as an individual. And even if there is someone who doesn't quite see it the same way, I don't feel necessarily that you should bend into what they want. So do continue to go for what's important for you, but there is lots of opportunities this week, I feel, to move forwards in a more dynamic way. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Gemini, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast sees a brilliant link forged on Monday between your sparkling ruler Mercury in the energetic Aries with Jupiter in your sign. Ever since Jupiter joined you in late May last year, it hasn't quite had the opportunity to shine in the way that it would like. And the reason for this is that essentially since last July, Saturn in the sign of Pisces was in a square, sometimes more exactly, sometimes more broadly. Now, they are at the present time not so conflicted, but what you get at the start of this week is an opportunity to use some of the knowledge and experience you've gained over the last year, perhaps the refinements around a plan that's important to you, to now be able to punch it across with a great deal of clarity, but also enthusiasm and personality. Also, right through the month of April, Venus, the relator, was checked off by Saturn in a very restrictive way. There may have been some disappointments around your professional situation. A job interview didn't go quite to plan. You didn't hear back. Someone at work was a bit cool and hard to read exactly why. At the start of this week, Neptune and Venus forge a very delicate alliance, but their link back to Pluto, despite his retrograde, is brilliant for really understanding what's important in terms of your message, because that's Pluto. The 9th house is something that's very important to you, perhaps something that is a point of principle. It could be a legal matter, it could be something to do with publishing. If you want to articulate your message, you can do so with the furnace of the Aries energy with Neptune, Venus and Mercury, but you can do it in a deft way. What's not to like? And also, although the aforementioned Saturn has been a mischief maker over the last year, I feel for your sign in particular, and Uranus has been a mischief maker for your sign since 2019, March, full time, in the sense that it's been pushing and provoking you to look at the more psychological side of your nature, and sometimes you may have been a bit reluctant. They actually forge an excellent alliance right at the start of this week, along with the node. So as much as there has been frustrations over the last month professionally, I think something can manifest itself for you in a significant way this week, which will truly please you. But it has to be said that Mercury, your ruler, does then move forwards, and by Saturday it eases into the 12th house of your chart, joining up with the Sun, but also with Uranus. Mercury in the 12th house can be quite complex, to be honest. It can be a great opportunity to perhaps read about psychology, perhaps go on a retreat, think about things that are more to do with your inner world. If you did want to have some time out, that would be a great point to do so from the end of the week, because there is also going to be a full moon which emerges right at the start of the week following this one. And that could mean that if you have been experiencing a little bit of stress or a little bit of agitation with Uranus in your 12th house from March 2019 full time, you do get a chance to try to understand exactly the impact that's having upon you, whether it's in a physical or a psychological sense. So if there has been a little bit of stress going on, I feel that Mars intersecting the emerging full moon but right at the end of the week, in touch with the sun in your 12th house, could mean that something comes up that you feel compelled to defend yourself in quite an assertive way. So watch out for someone who might not necessarily tell you up front how they feel, but in some way could create a bit of a drama, and you could find yourself needing to defend the situation. But just be aware that sometimes Mars can be quite a triggering influence, particularly the 12th through the 3rd houses. The 12th house can be gossip, quite frankly, can be secret enemies in traditional astrology. The 3rd house of Mars is great to be more vigorous, either in terms of what you say. A lot of newspaper journalists have Mars in the 3rd house, or perhaps physically more active. But that angle back to the 12th house means that a sensitivity can be triggered in quite a quick way by the urgency of Mars in Leo, and also the pride. So watch out towards the end of this week. Despite it being, I feel, a very productive time for you, there may just be one person who has a talent for getting under your skin, and just try to anticipate who that might be, and don't give their drama the oxygen that it doesn't deserve. So rather than reacting, perhaps the best way to deal with this situation is to deflect, or perhaps just ignore. Go and do something that inspires you, but you may have the need to cocoon yourself away a little bit towards the end of the week, despite the sparkling alliances forged as the week goes on. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. So Cancer, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins in splendid fashion with the moon in your sign forging a lovely alliance with the sun. The sun's in the part of your situation to do with your friendships, your group interactions, your longer term plan. But what really inspires you, what sees you go above the more material world? The challenge for you as this week goes on, to be honest, I feel, is Mars, because as the week progresses and we head towards the full moon at the start of next week, something that has been perhaps a little bit of a challenge for you, which showed up especially in April with Saturn's application to Venus, but perhaps more broadly over the last year with Jupiter, the planet of hope, in your 12th house, is if you are doing something at the present time, probably in a more mundane way, work, or your life isn't quite inspiring you as much as you would like, and even though financially it might be working for you, I feel there could be an existential question that you have to ask yourself by the end of this week. Do you continue on the path that you're on, and in some ways accept that there are some compromises to be made, or do you want to break out in a more dynamic fashion? Because Mercury, the planet of communication, starts this week in a sensational link with Jupiter. A conversation you have could really give you food for thought. Also Venus, the relator, but the finance planet, right at the top of your chart now, suggesting its link with Pluto, which is exact on Tuesday. A profound conversation you have could really give you even more to consider about that big decision, which I sense may be looming. And part of the reason that it feels so fated is that Saturn is in a conjunction with the North Node at the start of this week, but they're both linking to Uranus. And Uranus is actually very powerful for you, because it's asking you perhaps to do something that might be perhaps less orthodox. It might be a bit left field. It might be turning your back on something that seems safe, orderly and remunerative, but it could seem so much more exciting if it does inspire your soul. So by the end of the week, when Mercury moves into your 11th house, joining up with the Sun and Uranus, that decision about your long-term future it's really going to be very strong. It may also be in a romantic context. If there are differences between you and yours around intimacy or money, that also, or values, that also could be something that's about to show up. But essentially, the big picture of this week, I feel, is that something that you've been working through for about 9 months reaches a peak point. And that peak point is almost like a crossroads. Which way do you head? Do you stay on the path that you're on now, or do you do something that's entirely different, even if in a more logical context it doesn't seem necessarily the most sensible thing to do? And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. So Leo, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with the Sun continuing its journey along with Uranus in the most visible part of your chart, which can be very much to do with goals and ambitions, raising our profile, achieving greater recognition and acclaim, but it also can be about power dynamics. And last week I think may have had some tense moments which did prove to be somewhat frustrating. Whether it's at home or professionally, how you're presenting yourself at the moment could be having a greater impact. I feel that people are more conscious of who you are, and if you use that authority in the right kind of way, it can be very constructive, but there may be a shift, or a shift that's being resisted by someone close to you. But the great news is that as this week begins, there are a couple of very positive influences back to back. And on Monday, the 1st, is Mercury, the planet of communication, in the free-spirited 9th house for you and your fellow fire sign of Aries, forging a fabulous link to Jupiter, the planet of growth, but also luck. If you are going on a trip or a journey, perhaps with a group of people or one special friend, or on business, that's a really lovely influence. But also Venus linking back to Pluto, despite Pluto's retrograde and Venus being in detriment, which is exact on Tuesday, can help you to think very deeply into relationship dynamics and actually tease out what's really important and enriching for you. Now also this week, although Uranus has perhaps made your worldly interactions somewhat changed over the last few years, and if you have had a certain amount of back-to-back changes, that may have at times been a little bit challenging, but actually Uranus forges a very good link with the North Node and Saturn at the start of this week. So if you are trying to make sense of some shifts that have gone on, especially financially, by looking at any of your situations in a more step back way, just remove yourself somewhat and just think afresh, that actually can tease some opportunities in as well. With Mercury moving to join up with both the Sun and Uranus by Saturday, if you are thinking about some qualifications around your professional situation, your timing is impeccable. But you could find yourself by the end of this week and the start of next week perhaps applying for new jobs, having influential meetings, doing some presentations, and Mercury in the 10th house will very much help you in that regard. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Virgo, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with the Sun forging a beautiful link with the Moon. the Sun in the part of your chart to do with freedom, independence and adventure, linking to the Moon in your 11th house of friendship. If there is someone you can get together with, or a group of people that you find really good fun, that's a very lovely start to the week. But also your ruler Mercury is blessed, forging an excellent link to Jupiter. Jupiter's the planet of luck in simple terms, but over the last near to a year, since the end of May, when it moved into the peak of your chart, the 10th house, to do with work, professional opportunities, and trying to raise your profile, it has been limited somewhat by the cool responses you've received through Saturn in your sector of relationships. So whether it's been at work or personally, relationships have really had to be worked at, especially in April with Saturn and Venus so closely allied. But I feel that Mercury and Jupiter at the start of this week, especially if you are talking about a business matter, really give you a chance for some kind of significant breakthrough. It could be financial as well, to be honest. Pluto's retrograde in your 6th house is suggesting, and its future time in the sign of Aquarius, that some of the practical structures that have been in place for some while in your life are going to change. Now, some of them may change in a modest way, others in a more dramatic way. You're going to steer the process, be assured of that. But one of the things you could do with your eye for a detail is think about your finances, your long-term finances. Things like pensions, savings, investments, property, equities. Well, Venus is about money, and that eye for a detail can really help you on Tuesday to assess a situation with a great deal of shrewdness and wisdom. But if you're open to look at things in perhaps a fresh light, Uranus in a very constructive link to Saturn and the North Node at the start of this week suggests that if you just go with perhaps evolving in a situation because of your preference to know exactly where you stand and have some kind of order in your life, this is a time when you are being encouraged in a way to be a little more flexible and just flow on with things. And Mercury moves by Saturday, by the end of the week, and that's going to give you even more encouragement to open up to new possibilities, widen your horizons, release anything which is not working for you, whether it is a stale friendship, whether it is an interest you've had that has lost its sparkle, whether it is a job that may have been a big part of your world for some time. Is it as gratifying as it was? Give yourself permission to investigate new possibilities, because if you can, I feel there's lots to gain. It's just that Mars does continue in a very psychological part of your chart, and it could create some inner resistance, and you could find yourself being a bit defensive if it feels that other people are almost trying to push you along to a new place in your life before you're quite ready. But essentially this week does have a lot of blessings. And in terms of the relationship side of things, if you have gone through some tensions in April, but you have survived them, the link between Venus and Pluto on Tuesday can help you to really think about, in a very practical way, the benefits of certain involvements, but that also can draw you closer in a more spiritual and intimate way too. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Libra, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with Jupiter, the planet of growth, in a stunning alliance to Mercury in your sector of relationships. I always like to see the big picture to widen the lens outwards, because if we go back to when Jupiter moved into your fellow air sign of Gemini at the end of May last year, you may have read about how things were going to open up, you're going to travel, you're going to meet all these different types of people. It was going to be super exciting. But actually the reality is that some of your everyday obligations, responsibilities have actually taken quite a lot away from that Jupiterian principle of being free and easy and much more adventurous. You've had to focus on some realities such as work. Perhaps your energy hasn't been quite as high as it might have been, and that's because of Saturn in Pisces, which has broadly been in a square with Jupiter. But also recently, while Saturn was applying to your ruler Venus, and there was even more awareness of the obligations you had, the things you had to do in order to meet other people's expectations. But as we start this week with Venus, your ruler, back in Aries, aligning with the mystical Neptune, they're both forging a beautiful link with Pluto. What does that create? I feel it creates, despite Pluto's retrograde, an opportunity for you to become much more aware of the type of connections you want, but it also can see you draw some very special things to you. And you may find that people just seem different, seem less hostile, less demanding, and that is very helpful. And the other part of last week was the intensity of the T-square from the Sun in Taurus, the sector of transformation, back towards Mars and Pluto. Now, Mars and Pluto are still broadly in a standoff, but with Uranus, like the Sun, in your 8th house, forging an excellent link to the North Node and Saturn at the start of this week, whereas you may have felt bogged down by other people's demands, now you get an opportunity to think about how you can adapt your daily routines in a more creative way. Better time management, being a bit more productive with what you do, perhaps squeezing more from your energy, freeing yourself up by decluttering your physical space, maybe tidying up your workstation, and so forth and so on. But Mercury, like Neptune and Venus in your 7th house, gives you an innate ability to receive information from other people. And the conversation you have at the start of this week can really give you a lot of uplift. It could be that someone's going to let you know how much they appreciate you, because that may have seemed uncertain quite recently. And that in itself can be very gratifying. But Mercury is going to be moving forwards by the end of this week, and it is going to be arriving to join up with the Sun and also Uranus in your 8th house. So whatever conversations you have, you will want to see the outcome of those conversations in some kind of tangible way, particularly if if money is part of the discussion. So hopefully you're going to get something offered to you this week. It could be socially. Someone might suggest going on a trip or holiday. It could be an opportunity to meet up, to dance, do something around a shared interest. It could be a business offer, it could be a job opportunity, but something lighter and brighter is coming this week for sure. Enjoy it, Libra. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Scorpio, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with your 2 rulers, Mars and Pluto, still broadly in an opposition. Pluto, however, has now gone retrograde and is going to be asking you through to the middle of October to think very deeply about what you can release that no longer serves your greater good when it comes to your home, emotional and family situation. If you are hoping to evolve or change, perhaps work on your personal development at a very deep internal level, I feel that what Mars and Pluto are battling it out around at the start of the week is how much do you let on about what's going on deep within you, because Mars can be very prideful in Leo. Or is it around a personal relationship that there is a shift that's going on? It may be that someone that you've been involved with as a friend, within the family, perhaps a partner, perhaps at work, somehow or another that shift could be leaving you feeling a little uncertain. I want to reassure you that by the end of this week, Mercury will move from a brittle part of your chart, where it does actually forge a stunning alliance to Jupiter on Monday exactly, which can be lucky, straight out lucky around a financial or business matter, but it can be a little brittle in the 6th house. But by the end of the week, it moves into the part of your chart which helps you to receive other people's viewpoints, but be a little bit more chilled out about it. So if they see things differently to you, so be it. Also, Uranus in your 7th house, which may have seen you quite changeable at times, or your circumstances have changed quite a lot. I don't mean that unkindly, it just means that at times, since March 2019, you may have been wanting closeness, at other times needing more personal space. And that's been a little bit changeable. But actually, through this week, Uranus forges an excellent link with Saturn and the North Node. And Saturn and the North Node in your 5th house, your 5th house can be about fun, pleasure, joy, romance. And of course, Saturn was pummeling Venus for the whole of April, which may have made things a little difficult at times. But again, a bit like Mercury moving into your 7th house and understanding where Mars in your 10th house could make relationship shifts tricky if pride does get in the way. By the end of this week, the movement of Mercury and Uranus and Saturn aligning in the way they are can help you to look at things in a really different way. So I'm not sure so much it's your circumstances that will physically change this week, but I think your relationship to the circumstances can change a lot. But that all is preparing you for your annual full moon in your sign, one of the most intense full moons of the whole year, and it's on Monday the 12th of May. So that is going to be potentially complex because Mars is going to be intersecting the position of the moon in your sign and the sun in Taurus. So something isn't quite settled around that relationship dynamic, and you feel someone is perhaps trying to gain some kind of upper hand and not really being very open about it, not being very transparent. That could bring it all into the open as this week draws to a close. But if you can, just try to go with things and understand that nothing in life is fixed. And certainly with Pluto going into that retrograde, there's a lot to be gained from understanding at the more profound level the deeper parts of your nature and reactions. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Sagittarius, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins with your ruling planet Jupiter right at the heart of the celestial action. Jupiter retains its place for the time being through to the 9th of June in your sector of relating. But since Jupiter moved there in late May last year, it has been restrained by the rather cautious energies of Saturn in your sector of emotion, home, family. And whether it has been looking after people who've perhaps needed your support in your family, or there have been issues about a property, or perhaps your own emotional situation has needed some attention, which may have not seen you quite as outgoing as people would normally expect. And also more recently, Venus the relator through April had Saturn escorting it right through the month. Saturn and Venus is not a bunch of laughs. So there may have been some quite important but not necessarily easy discussions, maybe about a family, emotional or property matter. Maybe your own emotions have just felt a little more dimmed. But as this week begins, Jupiter forges a truly epiphyseal link to Mercury. Mercury's in Aries, your sister fire sign, but Mercury there can be cheeky, can be great fun, mischievous, but very quick-witted, of course. And of course it can be playful. The 5th house is about fun. So you could find yourself actually, after all the challenges, finally coming into some fresh air where you feel that, yeah, I'm in the mood to meet up, to mingle, to interact in a more playful way. Also, Venus, like Mercury, is back in Aries now, so that brings the fire energy to the fore, which is something you can really feed off. And it's forging a profound link exactly with Pluto on Tuesday. What you think about or how you feel about someone, if you express it to them, they're going to see how sincere you are. But also, even if you don't have a conversation, it's what you're working out within you. You'll be able to figure out who's really important or what's really important to you in terms of your ideas, or perhaps a creative idea or strand you have, because Venus and Neptune at the start of this week really can see you inspired when it comes to showcasing your artistry. However, Uranus, which has been creating quite a lot of challenges, I think, in trying to get some kind of pattern going in your life, pretty well all the time since March 2019. Ironically, as much as Saturn has been a pain recently in that conjunction with Venus, it starts this week in a very strong alliance with Uranus. And if, for example, you did declutter, tidy up, try to make your everyday world work that much better, it can be something that really brings a real sense of happiness to you. Now, later in the week, Mercury is going to be moving on, and it is going to be going into a much more precise zone. Don't worry about that, because Mercury has gone through this long retrograde. There may have been something that you started to get excited about a couple of months ago, and then it didn't quite happen. Maybe some other issues or family or emotional things got in the way. But by the end of this week, you'll be able to see how much traction you're gaining around something that does require some precision. And if that routine and order that has been elusive over the last few years still seems a little bit out of reach, partly it could be because Mars, in the most free-spirited part of your chart, is still making you so much more conscious of that part of your nature which just loves freedom. So in order to gain from this week, I feel that you will need to accept that there will be some things that you do need to devote yourself to, and that could be much more towards the end of the week. So it's a bit of a balancing act between that part of you that doesn't want to lose your independence, another part of you that does want your inner, more practical world to work a bit more efficiently. And obviously we can't get it all, so there's lots of working parts going on here. But having the week start with that very epiphyseal link between Mercury and Jupiter, I think it's going to give you such an uplift. The lovely link between Venus and Neptune can bring some joyful news of some kind or another. And if home, emotional or family matters have been a bit of a struggle over the last couple of years, know that you are moving towards a different path of the year with Saturn moving into Aries on the 25th of May. And I think it's one that you're going to appreciate, with Saturn linking back so constructively to the position of Pluto. So your ideas are going to gain currency. There's going to be much more oxygen, much more fire, but you can get some of the practical areas of your life working better as long as you can accept you can't have total freedom in your situation. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Capricorn, your week beginning, the 5th of May, begins with the energy of last week's very turbulent clash between Mars, Pluto and the Sun starting to resolve itself somewhat, because the moon starts this week in a very placid part of your chart, giving you an opportunity to connect to people better. Of course, through April, your ruler Saturn was in a very close alliance with Venus, and just generally conversations may have been a bit stilted through April, or perhaps you felt a bit dispirited a little bit, or not quite as enthusiastic as usual. And as we start this week, because there is such a cluster of energy in your fourth house, you may be wanting to just spend a little time at home and enjoy pottering, doing some arty stuff, maybe improving decoratively. If you're in the north, enjoying your outdoor space, all of that can be very pleasing to your senses for sure. But Uranus, which has been pushing you over the last few years to be much more daring, and I think part of why last week's energy could have seen you do something quite dynamic, maybe around a romantic situation that could have even surprised you. I feel that actually Uranus this week forges a very constructive link, not just to Saturn, your ruler, but also the North Node. So whereas words or exchanges may have felt stilted in April, now you can make much more sense of them. Whereas last week there may have been a desire to be more impulsive or compulsive, or do as you wish, be more rebellious, which may sound a little counterintuitive for you. This week, particularly by the time Mercury gets into Taurus by Saturday, I feel that you're just going to ease the way into what can be quite an entertaining and playful end to the week. And because there is also a very strong link between Mercury and Jupiter this week, so if you do work from home or you have an idea, they call it a side hustle these days, but if you have a sideline that you think you could monetize in some ways, that can really attract greater interest from you early in the week as well. But by the end of the week, a more mischievous and playful side of your nature could come out, and why not indeed? And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. So Aquarius, your week commencing the 5th of May forecast begins in potentially very upbeat style. A really positive link between Mercury and the chatty third house in the energized and passionate Aries links perfectly to Jupiter, the planet of fortune, in the most playful, self-expressive part of your situation. You may have felt a bit muted at times through April because of Saturn, your traditional ruler, being so closely aligned to the planet of self-expression, essentially Venus, relating. But Venus starts this week in the sign of Aries, very close to Neptune. So when you're expressing your ideas, you can do so with enthusiasm, but also with some delicacy and sensitivity. But the link back between Venus and Pluto on Tuesday is going to help you to understand who's really meaningful in your immediate world. And you could have some very, very important discussions in the early part of this week. The other big takeout for you this week is your two rulers are actually on very good terms. So Saturn and Uranus are in a sextile. Uranus has been shaking things up around your home and emotional and family affairs over the last 5 or 6 years. And Saturn has been perhaps pushing you to get firmer foundations over the last 2 years. But something around the sensible changes you've made, but also being open to doing things different, which is part of your nature, can be a very good equation to pursue. Now, later on this week, Mercury is going to join up with the Sun and also with Uranus in your 4th house. If you do work from home, or you feel that you need a better space, perhaps just to have some time alone, Mercury could give you the ideas and the strategies to create that by the end of the week. We are cresting up by the end of this week to a full moon which will see your emotions very close to the surface. So if there is something a little out of kilter between the work-life balance of your situation, it is going to be something that could come up. And because Mars is in your sector of assertion, If you do need to tell people about what you need from them, set your boundaries, perhaps about who does and contributes what at home, whether it is family members, a house share, a lodger, whatever it may be. I feel you will have the chance to do that, but if something is out of kilter, it will need addressing as this week draws to a close. But Mercury in the 4th house, it's not so good for saying outwards how we feel, but it's not bad for thinking inwards and getting in touch. And in the sign of Taurus, it's very much about coming up with strategies which have some kind of practical benefit. So that could mean some physical changes to where you live as the week draws to a close. But there is lots of opportunities earlier in the week for some very bubbly exchanges and very positive ones too. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video. Pisces, your week beginning. The 5th of May forecast sees both your ruling planets, traditional Jupiter and modern Neptune, right at the heart of the celestial equation. In the case of Jupiter, at the end of May last year, Jupiter moved into a part of your situation that's to do with your home, your family, your emotions. And that could be an area that you've seen or had the appetite to improve, maybe through redecorating, reconfiguring, maybe reconstruction. Maybe it's been in addition to the family. But progress has probably been slower than you would have liked, because Saturn, the planet of structures but also limitation, has been in your 1st house. So it means your physical vitality hasn't always been that strong to do quite as much as you would like. And then over the last couple of months, as Venus and Mercury have gone from your sign to Aries, back to your sign, back to Aries now, in the case of Venus too. Also something that has been very frustrating, particularly through April. But if you just reflect on all of the challenges you've gone through, I think this week, and particularly by the end of this week, you'll start to see that you have actually gained a lot of traction. Now, whether it's around a hobby, whether it's around an idea, whether it's around a spiritual interest or domain, whether it's something physical, whether it's something you're buying or selling, it doesn't matter. Everyone does things differently and what's right for them. But do commend yourself on your progress, because your modern ruler, Neptune, is very close to Venus at the start of this week. So even if it's not hard cash that's in your hands, what you can see is something that you're manifesting that's important to you and very unique to you. I think you can also quarry down into your deepest resources, because maybe as with Pluto retrograde and in your 12th house, if you're aware in astrology, that can be quite psychological. Just be conscious that there are strengths within you. There is resilience and talents that can be quarried out and shaped in perhaps slightly a different way. What will help you this week is Neptune and Venus together, linking back to Pluto. But also I feel the lightning rod is Uranus, because Uranus is arcing towards the node in your sign, but most importantly to also Saturn. So while Saturn has been quite frustrating at times, slowed things down, asked you to focus on what's really essential, the things you have done properly are probably going to last. The people you've met that are important to you are likely to be players who will be with you for some time. So by the time Mercury on Saturday moves into your 3rd house and you end this oscillating period of frustration where an idea, think it's coming right, and then it just seems to stall, and that's gone on for the last couple of months, I think by the end of this week you're going to have a conversation, get an email, text message, have a thought which helps you to realise just what you've achieved, even if it hasn't gone exactly to the first plan or exactly at the pace you first perceived. And please do check out my new website at patrickarundell.com. You can download your free natal chart. It's amazing. You can get your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, but also your daily moon horoscope based on your unique birth data. And also check out that wonderful three-card tarot, or look to book a one-to-one with me by reading the testimonials under this video.